I don't want to stop. Those four words. Blunt, unfiltered, delivered mid-race. From Lewis Hamilton to Ferrari. And in that moment, you didn't just hear frustration, you heard rebellion. Because this wasn't just a disagreement about tires. This was a veteran racer, the most successful in F1 history, openly questioning Ferrari's racecraft, their decision-making, their data confidence. And here's the twist no one dares to say. He might be the one person inside Maranello actually seeing the full picture. Stick around, because what happened in Austria isn't just about strategy calls, it's about how Ferrari still doesn't know what to do with a genius when he doesn't obey the spreadsheet. And if you think this ends in the garage, think again. And if you're the kind of F1 fan who likes the truth raw and unfiltered, tap that like button so the algorithm knows not to censor the real talk. Let's break this down like engineers, because surface-level narratives don't cut it anymore. Ferrari claimed the two-stop was the optimal strategy, but optimal for who? Let's look at conditions. Hamilton was on hard tires with solid longevity. The gap to the McLarens was unbridgeable. George Russell behind wasn't in undercut range. That is a dead zone of opportunity. The perfect time to experiment with offsetting. A known advanced strategy in modern F1 too. Create pressure scenarios late race, trigger reaction from rivals, or force a safety car gamble. Instead, they pulled him in early. Why? Because the model said so. But let's talk about those models for a second. Ferrari's simulations are notoriously rigid, parameter-heavy, relying on expected degradation curves and clean air assumptions. But Hamilton? He lives outside the parameters. His driving style conserves energy in microphases. The way he modulates throttle versus brake overlap allows him to extract rear grip beyond what traditional Delta models can track. In other words, what Ferrari's computer says is, the cliff isn't a cliff to Lewis. And when he said, I don't want to stop, he wasn't being difficult. He was reacting to something no algorithm could detect. Live grip behavior. Let that sink in. This wasn't a diva move, it was a top-tier read, one the team didn't trust. And that's the core issue. Ferrari isn't lacking data. They're lacking faith in the one man who can read between the ones and zeros. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Ferrari has operated for decades on hierarchical obedience. They design systems, then ask drivers to conform. But Lewis Hamilton? He doesn't conform. He reprograms the system. And D'Ambrosio, standing in for Vasseur, knows this. You could hear it in his press comments. They're racers. They should question. That's not just PR speak. That's preparation. Because what we're witnessing is the beginning of a structural shift inside Ferrari, one powered by Hamilton and his demand for agility. Forget the title fight this year. This is bigger. This is about culture. It's about breaking decades of rigidity and finally trusting instinct over prediction. What we saw in Austria, that was Hamilton stress testing Ferrari's ability to pivot. And spoiler alert, they failed the test. But the fact he ran it at all means he's not backing down. If you're one of those fans saying, why's Lewis always questioning strategy? Flip that. Why are they not listening? Because when a driver with 103 wins says, I don't want to stop, you stop what you're doing and you listen. Not because he's bigger than the team, but because he might be the only one seeing what the team is blind to. This isn't just friction. This is evolution. The day Ferrari finally gives Hamilton the latitude he needs is the day we stop talking about missed chances and start talking about red victories that were never possible before. So if you're as obsessed with F1 strategy, human-machine synergy, and the psychological chess match behind the pit wall, drop a comment below with what you would have done in Hamilton's place. Would you have boxed, or would you have gone full rogue? Either way, this battle isn't over. And neither is Lewis Hamilton. There are moments in Formula One that don't scream. They whisper, a team principal disappears, a former racer quietly takes his seat. No press frenzy, no chaos, just a handover. But if you think Jerome D'Ambrosio standing in for Fred Vasseur was just a formality, you're not paying attention. This weekend may have been the soft launch of a leadership shift at Ferrari, and the sport barely blinked. Behind the scenes, one of Mercedes' most trusted minds, just took control of Maranello's race day execution, and no one dared question it. What does that say? More than you think. Stick with me, because what's unfolding isn't just about a team boss taking a Sunday off. It's about the subtle rise of a new philosophy inside Ferrari. And this time, it didn't come from Italy. Oh, and if you're already leaning in, already feeling this is going somewhere big, hit that like button like it's a DRS flap in qualifying. Let's boost this signal. Let's start with the facts. Fred Vasseur, Ferrari's team principal, leaves the paddock for personal reasons. No drama, no panic. And instantly, Jerome D'Ambrosio steps in like he's been doing this for a decade. No missed calls, no awkward pit wall moments, just clinical execution. And then he says this: "I didn't feel like I was dropped into something like a fish out of water." Let me translate. He was ready because he's already been running things more than you realize. This is the man who once subbed in for Toto Wolff at Mercedes, not once but twice. The same guy who helped lead strategy development during Hamilton's dominant era. And now he's sitting in the Ferrari garage like he's always belonged there? That's not accidental. That's strategic placement. This isn't a guy learning on the job. This is a potential team principal in waiting, already aligned with the drivers, already on the comms, already in the meetings. And here's what's wild. Ferrari didn't skip a beat. Charles Leclerc, P3, Hamilton, strong P4, clean execution, no strategy chaos. This wasn't just managing the weekend. This was proof that Jerome D'Ambrosio doesn't need training wheels. Let's talk dynamics. Two men, both Mercedes-bred, both new to Ferrari in 2024, and both already influencing the culture, not through ego, but through method. Jerome isn't just here to fill a chair. He's already deep in discussions with Hamilton and Leclerc about structural change, engineering feedback loops, driver integration, execution rhythm. That's not support staff. That's the kind of shadow leadership Ferrari hasn't had since Jean Todt. Now pair that with Lewis, a driver pushing back against static strategies, reading tire life beyond the numbers, questioning everything with championship hardened instincts. And what do you get? A storm, a controlled one, but a storm nonetheless. Because if Jerome and Lewis keep steering Ferrari toward flexibility, toward adaptive systems and driver-led setups, you're looking at the blueprint for a modernized Ferrari, one that isn't just nostalgic red, it's bleeding high-performance black ops from Brackley. Let's not pretend this is business as usual. Vasseur may have gone home for personal reasons, but what Ferrari did this weekend was test something very different. They tested the future, and it didn't flinch. This is Ferrari after all. Change doesn't march, it creeps. But here's what you should be watching. Jerome D'Ambrosio is not a placeholder. His calm control and instant integration, that's what long-term leadership looks like. And if the SF25 evolves the way Hamilton wants, don't be surprised if Jerome's fingerprints are all over it. So the next time Ferrari has a quiet weekend, listen closer, because sometimes it's the quiet ones who build empires. And if you made it this far, you're clearly one of the real ones. The kind of F1 fan who reads between the lap times. So do me a favor, hit that like it's a Verstappen radio rant. Subscribe so you never miss the stories no one else dares to say out loud. And drop a comment. Should Jerome D'Ambrosio become the next full-time Ferrari boss? Because I'll be honest, I've seen enough to say yes. And if this weekend was the preview, Ferrari's future might finally be faster than its past. When Lando Norris hit Oscar Piastri in Canada, the world called it a misjudgment, a racing incident, a one-off. Even Lando himself fell on the sword. And Piastri? He walked away with quiet composure. But now we know that wasn't the full story, because McLaren's team boss just dropped a detail that changes everything. A hidden technical failure in Oscar Piastri's power unit caused a misleading speed delta, making Norris think he had room where there was none. And if you think that's just racing bad luck, think again, because what McLaren just confirmed is this: their title fight is real. Their drivers are this close to each other, and the only thing more powerful than the MCL39 is the tension brewing between the two men who drive it. Before we go deeper, do the smart thing. Hit that like button like you're diving into turn one with cold tires and no fear. Let's put this story in front of the fans who actually want the truth. Let's break down what actually happened in Montreal. Everyone thought Norris just got greedy. Oscar slowed slightly. Lando went for the gap. Bang. Game over for the Brit. But what Andrea Stella just revealed flips that story. Oscar Piastri's MGUK, the system that harvests braking energy and gives these hybrid monsters their mid-corner punch, was derating. In plain English, Piastri had less battery power to deploy than Norris expected. That's like going for a pass on a motorway, expecting the car in front to accelerate, and instead it flatlines. The closing speed misleads you. It lures you into a move that shouldn't exist. And that's exactly what happened. Now here's the technical twist that no one's saying out loud. That MGUKD rating wasn't a fluke. It's a byproduct of McLaren's push to extract every last millisecond from a chassis that's arguably the best in the field right now. They're running aggressive cooling strategies. They're dancing on the edge of ERS deployment windows. And in the process, they're asking Oscar and Lando to trust a car that sometimes lies. Now ask yourself this. In a title fight separated by fractions of a second, can you afford to trust a car that can derate without warning? And more importantly, can you afford to trust your teammate? Let's talk psychology. After Canada, Norris didn't hide. He got on the radio, took the blame, apologized to Oscar, apologized to the team. But beneath the surface, something deeper is shifting. You see, McLaren has made a very public decision. No team orders, ever. Zak Brown's words were blunt. We'd rather lose the Drivers' Championship than compromise fairness. That's noble. That's romantic. That's also extremely dangerous. Because in the background, what's forming isn't just a teammate rivalry. It's a cold, strategic war between two drivers who are now statistically faster than Verstappen. Piastri has 5 wins, Norris has 2, and in Austria, they went 1-2 in the cleanest, fastest team performance of the year. But here's what no one wants to admit. That battle only stayed clean because Oscar didn't squeeze, because Lando didn't send it too deep, because the memory of Montreal kept their gloves partially on. How long does that last? When the title is on the line, do you really think one of them is going to yield? Do you think Piastri, the unshakable rookie who never flinches, is going to just play number 2? Do you think Norris, with a decade at McLaren and no championship to show for it, is going to back off now? Of course not. And McLaren knows this. That's why Stella called Canada benign. That's why he's painting Austria as a triumph of unity. Because he's trying to manage something much bigger than strategy. He's managing 2 apex predators in the same paddock. And he knows what happens when they both start hunting the same prey. The best rivalries don't explode overnight. They simmer. Hamilton versus Rosberg, Senna versus Prost. Now, Norris versus Piastri. 2 drivers, 1 car, no orders. That's not a partnership. That's a time bomb. And if McLaren doesn't intervene, it'll go off, not in a crash, but in a cold, clinical dismantling of trust, lap by lap, weekend by weekend. You still think Canada was a misjudgment? Maybe, or maybe, it was the first crack in what will become the best title fight we've seen in 10 years. If you felt that, if this hit different, drop a like it's your launch off the grid. Subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. And tell me in the comments, who blinks first, Norris or Piastri? Because I'll say this, whichever one doesn't, he'll be world champion. And the other, just collateral damage.